Hey, welcome back to this mini lecture. My name is Dino. It's great to see you as always. This one's on reflections on teaching and education. It's part one of a multi-part series. I think my biggest piece of advice would be to be authentic. Strive to be your best authentic self. There's a video I've shared previously in class. It involves a gentleman named Aaron Stark, and he wrote to, I believe it was the Washington Post, talking about the idea of he thought he might have been a school shooter back in the day. Like he had that potential. And then luckily he had some people that intervened on him to help him sort of deal with some of the adolescent issues he had. And the quote he said is, give love to the ones you feel deserve it the least because they need it the most. So it's, be authentic and then try to help those who need the help. And I think my biggest takeaway would be, how can we be authentic given external pressures that can often hit us? Creativity versus control. When you're practicing and you're teaching a class, consider the difference between classroom control and creativity. Try to think about, in terms of control, how often you're calling for order, how often you're calling for quiet, and how often you're trying to instill a sense of compliance in your students versus the creativity you want to foster, which often needs some kind of disorder, some noise among students, and the freedom to do certain things. We often say, especially in present days, we want to have creativity among kids, creativity in our pedagogy, but often we seem to dwell in control. And again, going back to the last slide, there are institutional and societal pressures for control. Say if you have a well-intentioned principal and you're a new teacher to school, and he or she is walking around the school, and they see every time they go into your classroom that it's chaotic, they may give you some ideas about being more controlling of your class, and then as a result you might feel that kind of institutional pressure. And ultimately from this, I want you to sort of think about, why do we make the teaching decisions we make? Like why do we have this positive desire for creativity, and in contrast, why do we want to control others in a classroom? Caring. You want to ensure your students know you care about them. If they know that you care about them, you will have a fantastic teaching experience, and they will know that you care about them, and they will buy into whatever you're trying to do with them. I've noticed especially post-COVID, students need more support than ever before. I think that was highly dislocating. So again, whatever your thoughts on COVID, I think it's hard to argue with the fact that it was very disorienting for a lot of people. And as a result, I say that students need more support than ever before. And then from this caring ethos, I'm trying to have you consider, if you want to have students that you care about them, where does the support that they need, the caring that they need, come from? Is it from parents? Is it from school counselors? Is it from their peers? Is it from teachers? Is it from someone else we haven't identified? And then ultimately, like if your education is not, it's not like a daycare center. You're not just like taking care of people all the time. And so then I wonder, and then something you really need to figure out is, how do we toggle between having a sort of a happy, positive support system, and then some of the other times when you need to be more stern disciplinarian. This can be more problematic for younger teachers maybe than older, and this is the idea that guardians, which is sort of a broader term that would include parents. They're your friends. You want to invite guardians, parents, people from the outside into your educational program as much as you feel that you can. I'd highly suggest contacting them early in the year while the stakes are low. Often what happens is that parents and guardians are contacted, and the very first contact usually involves a misbehavior in terms of the student. Then your very first interaction with them is something kind of negative. So I'd say from that, if it's just 30 minutes a day, that you can get them, not that you're going to talk to them 30 minutes a day, but that you can kind of instill a mindset that they are important to your education, to your child's education. Even if they can be involved with their kids 30 minutes a day, even less if they can just even, check in with them, see how they're liking school or not liking it, and kind of just be a bit more involved than they might be otherwise. Ultimately, how do we include guardians and parents, etc., in our education? That is a really big deal, because obviously this is all dealing with a comfort level that makes you feel good and makes your students feel good. And then ultimately for all this, again, the reason that you're inviting them is that, the more support you can get from anyone, that, it's not just the parents taking them to soccer practice or basketball practice or whatever else, or piano lessons, but also having them somehow be a little bit more hands-on in terms of their beloved children's education. Maybe I should have had this right really early on. I'd highly advocate for you to pace yourself. And please conceive of the academic year. It's a marathon. It is not a sprint. I think the people that do not fare so well and really struggle, they do not hit a sustainable level quickly. And it's like every day is a sprint just to finish. And then they're exhausted. And then the next day is a sprint. And the next day. And it's just like a series. It's a marathon full of sprints. But think of it more of as a measured pace of a marathon where your energy and your exertion kind of ebbs and flows depending on how you're feeling. And obviously you need to meet a specific level, like a minimum level, obviously, but you can't go full gangbusters every day. Like, try to advocate for your own mental and physical health. I would talk to whoever you can about that to get some kind of support for mental health days, so that you get some kind of like support, whatever you need. And then ultimately, I think the big consideration is how do we keep physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually happy, given teaching's many, many demands, which can always seem like they take priority over your own personal health. If you can't do that, then you're gonna burn out, or you have a really high potential of burning out. At your various universities, colleges, wherever you go, you're often taught educational theories, and they're often like some of the ones there's so many people I love that are educational theorists that I try to incorporate in my practice. They have fantastic theories, but actually bringing them into practice is a different thing. Like, you can know a theory, agree with the theory, know the substance of the theory, but actually making it actually part of your pedagogical practice is really difficult. They take diligence, they take effort, they take time. Like you doing certain things can take a lot of time. I'd highly suggest for you to pick your spots, especially if you're dealing with something that's like sort of a social emotional learning. Say if you're trying to correct, like say if a moral failing on behalf of one of your students or a group of students. There's always something kind of crazy going on in schools in K to 12 level. You can't pick out everything and try to fix everything. Just pick the really big ones and try to do your best. And then ultimately, like say for myself, I like the ideas of communities of practice, critical pedagogy, and being democratic in the classroom. And that pushes back against a banking model in higher education, where it's basically, I'm a teacher and I'm supposed to just lecture you and give you information. Having communities of practice through breakout rooms or small groups, critical pedagogy where you give space for students to ask you questions and ask each other questions. Being democratic, and I mean small d democratic, being flexible with your students. That takes time, it takes effort, it's not what not every student expects. And then ultimately, I'm not saying any educational theory. I made sure not to stress any specific ones, although I gave some examples of things that I found important. What are the really important educational theories that you think are important for pedagogical practice, and how do you actually bring them into practice, which again are different things. That was some introductory reflections on teaching and education. My name is Dino. It's the first one of a multi-part series. Thanks for watching. As always, please feel free to like this video. Please feel free to subscribe to this video. Please feel free to comment on any of these. What educational theories you want to bring to practice? How are you going about doing that? How do you show that you care for your students? How do you balance some of the sort of supports that students need post-COVID versus your very demanding teaching demands? Thanks again, as always, for watching. Hope to see you again soon. Take care.